Broc Glover here in Glendale, Arizona at State Farm Stadium, where we're getting ready for the Dunlop Motorcycle Tires Track Walk at round 6 of the Monster Energy NBC Supercross Championship, but round 5 of the 250 West, and I'm with co-host Ryan Clark.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I've got two riders, Robbie Wageman and Cole Thompson, riding for the Team Solitaire Heartbeat Hot Sauce Yamaha team. So I'm excited. It's a hometown race. Usually tend to have good results here, so the track looks awesome, and I'm excited to walk it with a legend and check it out, see what we got in store.
Well, let's go get a start on this thing. It's a big floor here. The biggest floor of all the dome stadiums that in any of the stadiums that we do, other than obviously Daytona or the outdoor, more of the super speedways that we race in occasionally.
Right.
But this is 2,600 feet long. That's a gigantic, it's a long track, a lot of dirt here. I mean, put it in perspective, last week in Detroit, it was 1,000 feet shorter, and obviously we had low 40-second lap times. This one's going to probably be producing 1 minute-ish or high 50s possibly, but it's so long. It's a very fast track, and it's an amazing. It seems like certain riders come to the top, like Eli Tomac, for instance, winning 4 of the last 5 races here.
Yeah, he's had a good run here, and I think this track is going to race really well. I mean, it's a bigger footprint. You know, obviously I'm biased. I'm from here. I've always loved coming to this event.
Yeah.
It was down in Phoenix at Chase Field before when I was racing, so I never got a chance to ride in it. But man, it's a really wide open track. A lot of really wide corners. So I think it's going to be, you know, a passable track, a raceable track. It's going to produce some good racing. So I'm looking forward. We had our week off last week when the Series 1 East, and both of my riders put the time in, and I'm ready to see how we're doing.
Well, right now we're looking at this dirt. It's actually surprising. We're kind of behind the scenes here. Obviously, the Dirtworks crew putting a little bit of water here. The one thing when they brought this dirt in on Tuesday, they said this is the first time they remember in this town in Phoenix to being able to bring the dirt in without adding water to it. They've had a lot of rain here. I mean, we're wearing jackets. It's 50-something degrees outside. That's not what you expect for Phoenix. They've had a lot of moisture lately, huh?
Yeah, it's been a really wet winter. I can only remember when I first moved here back in 2002, it rained quite a bit. Since then, though, it's usually a pretty dry climate. This is probably the wettest winter since I've been here in the past 20-some years. So, be good for desert riding. It's good for a dome stadium Supercross. It definitely wouldn't be good if we were racing in Tempe, though.
No, it wouldn't right now. So we're standing right now. I wanted to get away from the water truck a little bit so the audio would be a little better. But 280 feet off the start. So basically, it's a football field. That's what it is. We've always known the Glendale races to have long starts. It's not quite as long as the other ones have been in the past, but still a very, very long, wide section coming in this first corner here. You know, separation, complete separation. And then, as you can see, our shoes were getting taller and taller because the mud's sticking to the bottom of it. But it is a sticky, high traction dirt that eventually works down to where it gets pretty darn hard packed and then becomes slippery. And you think back at the first few times they raced here. I remember when Blake Baggett won his first Supercross, and I get only 450 race, I guess, that he won, but it was pretty darn hard packed that time, and it was remarkable that he had such a good run and really rode well. And I remember how hard packed that track got. But coming off of this, I was here press day. Your riders were here press day, but unfortunately you weren't here. So I'll tell you that the fastest line I saw anyone do, and not all the top guys were here. Barsha was definitely the quickest guy that I saw here and on the 450, but he was actually coming through here, hitting this jump, and he was somehow getting all the way. We'll try to get up here, Derek, up here, downsiding this table. And the only rider I saw doing it cleanly, it was a long shot, and when he cleaned this section right here, he was able to go triple, and then single all the way out. It's a pretty amazing run. The 250 guys, the mere mortals, were jumping up onto the table, singling out, but at that point, you're hitting the highs.
Yeah.
So that's what you're trying to avoid, and Derek will be able to come down here and see right here where this is about a 3-footer, right? And this is probably a 4.5, 5-footer. So 450 guys are trying to avoid this tall But, you know, you tell your guys to try to get off rhythm to try to avoid the highs also?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at this section, I mean, it's obvious you want to take off on the smallest bump you can and get your wheels back to the ground as quickly as you can. So that line you talked about Barsha taking, I mean, I think that's probably going to end up being a lot more people tomorrow once the track gets a little more raceable. You know, press days are sometimes they take it and then they make a little adjustment to the track here or there Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely the line. And the one thing about this section too is it does have a little bit of curvature to it at the end. So I mean, you're kind of gradually fading back to the left as you go through this rhythm, which is unique for this layout.
There's 2 lanes on each side. We're about the 50, well, we're probably getting closer to about the 20-yard line now, getting into the red zone. But we're working our way down towards the starting line into the end zone here, what they call the red zone. But this here is we're up on top of a high, but there's 2 lanes in this on opposite sides of the track, and both of them are very long, but both of them have curvature in them. So
correct.
I did see the riders in press day, they got to run this whole lane here. They were able to pass and get alongside of each other, so I was really glad to see that. Ironically, I mean, not often you see the track rut up a little bit, but the dirt is a little soft considering. But a little secret here, they're going to open the dome. That roof is coming open here, and they're going to be drying this thing out a little bit. So they'll keep adding water at times, but they're going to try to get the humidity out of here and open the dome up to let this thing air out. And the weather forecast for tomorrow is good. So
yeah, and I think just like the past, you know, it starts with moisture in it, but it's Arizona and it is a dry climate, and probably by tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be seeing dust popping up off these things for sure. So
yeah, and we were talking about the highs here. I mean, and then Barsha at this point right here, he was launching off of this one, tripling, and we've got 3 more, so he was clearing this one and the next one and coming into the single, and that was about as fast as I saw. Some of the 250 guys were able to get on that rhythm after, but they weren't able to downside that first table way back there. So, you know, 450s certainly have more grunt, and
it's those little things, you know, like I talked to Robbie Wageman and Cole Thompson a lot about. It's just that quarter of a second here or there that makes such a big difference. And you can see the difference with some of the factory guys coming through these rhythms. They're just lower, they're pushing through the jumps, they're really driving. And the guys that are maybe not quite so sure of themselves, they're popping up, you know, maybe seat bouncing here or there to just make sure they don't case it. And that's all you need to lose a little bit of time there, unfortunately.
And right out of that 180 corner, the Monster Bull corner there, come right up onto a pretty much what is a routine nowadays, triple jump. So this is an interesting one because it leads from a triple right into a wall jump to slow these guys down. And then that wall jump, when we get up there, it's I can't wait to watch what they do, if they try to get the bike back on the ground or they launch all the way, because right after that is a set of whoops.
You know, and this is kind of one of those instances where, you know, it wouldn't be probably faster to do it in the moment, but you could almost double and jump over that wall jump, you know?
You might be able to, you're right. If it happens to you, that'll be interesting to watch and see if someone does that, because if somebody has to check up for some reason, if they can clear this wall jump.
Yeah, but this wall jump isn't nearly as steep as some of the ones in the past either.
Right.
I think guys are going to be able to stay pretty low and scrub off it. And then you got this big whoop section. This will be a really passable area of the track, I think, because it does really open up. And if you can just get within a half bike length of somebody over that triple, it's going to really give you a chance to just open up and see, take a handful of throttle and see what you can do.
Yeah, test flying the drone in here. That's where we see the footage on the television coverage that's been so remarkable. But right there, the drone's out here practicing a little bit. But as you get into the whoops right here, this is what I heard last week. So this week they've said it was so successful running the 450 heats first. In their mind, they got nothing but positive feedback. So they're talking about doing it again this week, 450s first, then they go into the 250s, then they go into the LCQs. That LCQ, if one of your riders ends up in that LCQ, the window between the time that they come off the track and get called for their sighting lap is like 10 or 11 minutes or something. I don't know if they're going to extend it at all, but the TV schedule's tight. So do you guys have a plan B for that if something like that happens?
Well, definitely don't want to be in the last chance qualifiers, and both my guys are plenty good enough to make it out of their heat. So barring issue,
what if they don't?
I mean, we definitely will be ready. We have all the extra parts we need. you know, if you have a tip over or something, and then if you do go to that LCQ and you make it out, I mean, if you make it out, chances are you know your bike was good, you didn't have a big crash or anything, and you're just going to have to figure out how to get through that main event and get a good finish. You know, this sport isn't for the meek, so I know they'll figure. You know, they'll just put their head down and get it done.
Nice. Okay, so 9 whoops right there, dozer whoops. You know, a little shout out, thank you for the track guys to stop with the rain. Then right into a set of sand here. So the layout of the track, we're right about in the middle of the stadium. It goes whoops, 180, sand. Then we turn and go across the track, right across the starting line. So the whole width of the starting line here, and then into another set of sand and then whoops. So basically whoops, sand, turn, sand, whoops. So this area right here, as they're grooming and getting it all ready, this is the area that I was told in the first sessions that are not timed, they're gonna play with where they put the turns here to figure out what the best angle is for the riders coming off the sand, turning across this flat section, and then heading into this sand. So they'll try to figure out how close. They can't get too close to the gate because the mechanics tough blocks, where the mechanics area is, has to be behind it, and they can't be on top of the gate, obviously. So it's a balance between where they can put it, but it might vary from the first time they see the track to the actual qualifying session.
Yeah, it's interesting they're trying different things, and I think that's really going to dictate how the sand sections form, because if you're coming out, you've got a little bit of a wide open area before you start turning, and vice versa, coming in with a little more speed. You might not get that initial big bump, but you're going to get, you know, that kind of on braking a little bit more. So definitely track's going to change. I mean, that's the interesting thing about sand. You know, love it or hate it, it makes the race interesting.
It does, and you know, last week was a small, tight track, but it was challenging for the riders, and you know, produced some pretty darn good racing other than the main event when Jet got the whole shot and took off. But up to that point, the heat races were a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And back into another set of, you know, kind of standard. These are bookend. Again, this whole section is kind of a bookend, or if you want to call it, I guess it's a palindrome, right, where it's even on one end and the other.
Correct.
Whoops, sand, corner, sand, whoops.
Yeah.
So
lots going to be going on through here. I mean, these whoops, even though maybe they're not quote unquote as big as, you know, people say they used to be, this is still the area of the track that gets your heart rate really going. You know, the triples and even the rhythm sections, unless they're really tricky, the guys get an opportunity to breathe, but you're not breathing really through the whoops. So.
And the last set of whoops leading right up to the finish line jump here. So this is pretty cool. As you notice, on most track designs, the finish line jump is pointing right towards the exit. It's part of a flow pattern, tightens up the show for the night, gets the bikes off the track more quickly, and gets the next race started, so we're not waiting around in intermission and watching guys ride around for a minute and a half around a track. So it's pretty typical finish line over the jump. I noticed this one in press day, at least. Normally finish lines, it seems like the riders, we're gonna go over the side a little bit. It's a little muddy on the face there, but in press day, normally everybody just kind of has them done in their sleep. I saw more flat landing here.
Oh, really?
And then a couple of casings, like people are like, yeah, for some reason it was just funny to judge it, you know? And so
yeah, well, when you have that much speed coming into a jump, you know, it's easier to judge jumps that are right out of corners, especially on 250s, because you know, you figure, hey, if you're going to go 2, you check up. If you're going to go 3, you're probably going to hit it with, you know, pretty close to as hard as you can. But when you have a straightaway coming into it, like you do after that whoops, and you're carrying all the speed from the whoops, it's a little harder to judge. So
So let's talk a little bit. We got another 180 corner right off of a basic finish line jump, and another section before we get to a fairly tricky, the other rhythm section on the opposite side of the stadium that has a long 400 some foot long section that goes from one end of the stadium to the other, and it gets tricky here. But this is your basic triple, they call it. It looks a lot farther than basic. But Ryan, let's talk about yourself a little bit. The fact you rode at the top level, you know, for a long time. You turned in 1996, that's when you first started racing pro, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then 17 different seasons competing out here.
Yeah.
Which is, it's pretty amazing. And I remember there was a year or two there that you didn't run Dunlops, and I would always personally get a little frustrated because next thing you know, I look at Ryan Clark, you're sitting in 6th place or 7th place, man, another top 10 for that guy.
Yeah.
And it was, you were a sneaky fast rider that I think a lot of people don't realize. You rode in a tough era with the Carmichaels and the Ferries and the whatever, all the guys, and you had some amazing finishes.
Yeah, I'm proud of my career. You know, I had some good results, a lot of top 10s and some top 5s and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, ultimately I had set out to do what you did and win some titles and win some races. I didn't quite do that, but I'm real proud of it, and you know, the things I learned and I was able to apply to my life after racing. So, you know, I definitely don't, I'm glad that I went that route.
Yeah.
I'm happy, you know, the guys I raced against, they were some legends, and you know, I battled with them some, and I beat them every once in a while, and maybe they had a little problem, but
no, you were not a moving chicane. I know that for sure. You were a competitor. So coming off of this triple right here into this section here, most guys were trying to get, or most riders were definitely trying to get up on top of this table right here.
Yeah.
There were a couple that made it on the downside, and when they did that, it was a long ways, but when they did it, until this jump rutted up, then they were able to go triple, and make up a bunch of times. This section does not have really high lows. To me, there are 3-footers and 3.5-footers. There's no big 5-footers in this section. But this got real soft in that transition right there. So once that rutted up, most riders went back to the table, off clear here, and then you would start seeing your triple into the corner down there.
Yeah,
but,
it looks like a lot of big high-speed rhythms. It looks a lot easier on TV, I'll tell you that. You know, walking the track and even seeing, well, you know, when you're on the motorcycle, it actually feels easier than what it does when you're walking it and looking at it.
I completely agree.
But this is going to be tricky. This is going to be tricky with the, you know, if you do get some rutting. Like I said, I think it is going to dry out, and ultimately it's going to be a very raceable track that you can move around. But yeah, you gotta. Sometimes you just have to pull the trigger. They're scary looking, but once you do them once, they're, you know, you go realize, okay, I got that.
Yeah. So once we finish this section, again, it's a 400+ foot long section of rhythms. And then just a 90-degree, and we're gonna head back out across the starting line area.
They've been doing this double across the starting line quite a bit. Look at, you know, that's the one thing about Arizona. There are some rocks in the dirt here, so we definitely have to get rid of those. But they've been doing these doubles a lot, and they're big floaters, and they're kind of fun for the guys to have a little style over.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing there. Over here, it's there's a debate. It's either 60 feet or 59 or something, but it's basically a 60-foot shot all the way across the starting line.
And it's not forgiving. That's
no,
steep
it
side to the second one.
One of these days, I think I'm going to end up doing a face plant on one of these walks, but we'll try not to make today the first.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody has yet. It's
because it's slippery and it's wet. So I was looking at your stats, and I know you said a lot of top 10s. I think my numbers came up in the 2 classes in Supercross. I think you had 30 top 10s. So not a lot of people can say 30 top 10s at this level. And so again, you were, to me, maybe because you grew up in Albuquerque, you moved to Phoenix, but you know, I don't know, maybe you didn't get the fanfare all the people did, but you're one of the nicest, smartest guys in the pits. I know that, and I've always respected your skills. So
well, I appreciate that. Coming from you, it means a lot. So
well, it's I know, and I bet as a team manager, when you're working with these young guys, you have to remind them once in a while, like, I used to do that.
Well, I always tell them they can stop listening to me when they've got at least one better result than my best result. Yes. So we haven't got there yet, but I think Cole and Robbie both this year, they've got the potential to put it in the top 5. So But no, it was a great career. The highlights are definitely, honestly, racing in Phoenix. Once I kind of, because growing up in Albuquerque with Tedesco's and the Johnsons and everything, we didn't have a hometown Supercross. This was kind of our hometown race. And yeah, I mean, I had some good results here. I think my low light was actually looped out off the start here one time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I had a clutch malfunction on the line. And you know, I think my girlfriend was in the stands with her family, and they're like, does that happen often?
You're like
that's, I swear that's never happened to me before.
So when we come back, a jump 180 right across that Falcon tough block corner, shot across here. These are just little nuisance mosquito bumps really to these modern motorcycles, but does slow them down a little bit into another 180 right here before we go back out onto the starting line. So Ryan, running your team, do you base it here in Phoenix? I mean, not all the teams are based out of here, but where is your home when we're not on the road racing? Let's say we got this week off coming up, or even last week when the East Coast started. Where did you guys, your mechanics and riders, where do they stay? Do you have
the unique thing about our team is that we actually, the other mechanics, myself and my co-owner Chris Elliott, we all have full-time jobs. So
wow.
Joe and Eric, our two mechanics, they live here full-time.
Yep.
We just kind of work out of the small shop here. We also kind of base ourselves out of Race Tech. They do a lot of our engine development and dyno work.
Up in Corona
area?
area?
Out in Corona. So we do our testing at the Yamaha track. And yeah, but this is our hometown and this is our base. It's and it's great. There's a really strong riding community here. There's not a lot of local tracks left. Hopefully they start coming back, but with a couple of teams out of here, it's definitely raised the awareness.
Wow, so you have access to the Yamaha test track for your riders?
Yeah, absolutely. Yamaha's been great. I mean, they help us with development a little bit, and like I said, Race Tech really, honestly, working with them and Eric.
So right here, Derek, if you can zoom back in, and I'm going to give Ryan's expert opinion there. What do you think right here? Do you think they're going to pop a triple right here and onto the starting line? It certainly will be much faster if we carry some speed into that. What is the first corner there? Yeah,
I think if the track holds up and it doesn't get crazy ridey, I think for sure the 450s are going to do it.
Okay.
And, once the 450s start doing it, I mean, I think the other thing that they might be doing is this bump's small enough, and as it does get worn down, you might almost just be able to carry your front wheel over it, like double it and kind of almost manual and get out, or just jump out, 2-1. But
very good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a raceable track. The berms are big.
Yeah.
The berms are steep. I like it because then you can pivot down off them and you can get next to somebody. There's plenty of passing opportunities here, so it seems like to me the most raceable track of the season so far.
Well, it is always fun to watch this track. As long as it's big, it's long, huge footprint, but they let the speeds come up. And when you're in the stands and you see a lot of riders going fast, to me it's more exciting to see bikes going fast because you can't tell how small those whoops are when you're watching them struggle and you're like, why are these guys going so slow? But this track is not that case.
Does it make you want to take a lap?
Not at all.
Me neither.
And you
Me neither.
Very good. So Ryan Clark, thank you very much for being the co-host this week's track walk. And, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And Cole Thompson from Canada. And you have Robbie Wageman, a second generation rider. I used to race with his father, Russ. And you probably maybe spun a lap or two with him too. So great, and good luck with your team. And thanks everybody for viewing. And next week we're off. I'm going to a GNCC race, but we'll be back in Arlington, Texas. So please tune in.
Yeah, thanks.